In the days when the judges ruled, there was famine in the land, and a certain man from Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech. His wife was named Naomi, and his 2 sons were named Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem and Judah. They went to the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These married Moabite wives. One was named Orpah, and the other was named Ruth. After they had lived there for about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion died, and she was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started out to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and had given them food. So she left the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah.
But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and the living. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and the women wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why do you still go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they can become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way. I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you then wait until they're grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters. It has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me."
Then they wept out loud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me and more, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. And so the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred up because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" Naomi said to them, "Don't call me Naomi anymore, because it means pleasant. Instead, call me Mara, which means bitter, because the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me pleasant Naomi when the Lord has dealt harshly with me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?" This is how Naomi returned, together with Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, who came back with her from the country of Moab. But you know something? When they came to Bethlehem, it was the beginning of the barley harvest.
Now, Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a prominent rich man of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Ruth said to Naomi, "Let me go into the fields and glean and gather among the ears of grain, behind someone in whose sight I might find favor." Naomi said, "Go, my daughter." And so Ruth went. She came to the field and she gleaned behind the reapers. As it happened, she came to a part of the field belonging to Boaz of the family of Elimelech. Just then, Boaz came from Bethlehem. "The Lord be with you," he said to his reapers, and his reapers answered him back, "The Lord bless you." And then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, "To whom does that young woman belong?" His servant who was in charge of the reapers said, "She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi from the land of Moab. She came and said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind your reapers.' So she came. And she has been on her feet since early this morning, without resting for even a moment." And then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, do not go into another field or leave this one, but stay with my young women. Keep your eye on the field being gleaned and follow closely behind them. I have ordered the young men not to bother you. If you get thirsty, go and drink from the vessels that they have drawn." And Ruth fell prostrate before him with her face to the ground and said, "My Lord, how is it that I have found favor in your sight, that you would take notice of me when I am a foreigner?" And Boaz said, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. How you left your mother and your father and your native land and came to a peoples that you did not know before. May the Lord reward you for your deeds. May you have the full reward of the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for protection." And Ruth said, "May I continue to find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, even though I am not your servant." At mealtime, Boaz said to Ruth, "Here, have this bread, and dip your morsel into the sour wine." So she sat down among the reapers, and he heaped up for her some parched grain. She ate until she was satisfied, and there was still some left over. When she had finished, she got up and she went back out into the field. And Boaz called his young men and said to them, "You must allow her to glean from the standing sheaves, and do not rebuke her. And you must pull some handfuls from the sheaves for her, so that she can glean and gather, and do not rebuke her." And so Ruth stayed in the field until evening, and when she was done, she beat out the grain that she had, and she had an ephah of barley, an ephah, a bushel. That's a lot of barley.
Then Ruth picked it up, and she came into town, and she showed her mother-in-law how much she had gleaned. Then Ruth took out and gave to Naomi what was left over after she herself had been satisfied.
Where have you gleaned today? Where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you.
Then Ruth told her with whom she had worked. The name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz.
Blessed be he by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. The man is a relative of ours, one of our nearest kin, which means he has the right to redeem.
Then Ruth the Moabite said, "Well, he even told me, stay close by my servants until they have finished all of my harvest."
It is better, my daughter, that you stay with his young women. Otherwise, you might be bothered in another field.
So Ruth stayed close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning with them until the end of the barley and wheat harvest. But all the while, she lived with her mother.
And Naomi said, "My daughter, I need to find some security, so that may be well with you. Now, here we have our kinsman Boaz, with whose women you work. See, he is winnowing barley tonight down at the threshing floor. Now, wash, anoint yourself, put on your best clothes, and go to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he's finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. And then he'll tell you what to do."
All that you tell me, I will do.
And so Ruth went to the threshing floor and did all that her mother-in-law had instructed her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking, and he was in a good mood, he lay down at the edge of a pile of grain and fell asleep. Ruth came quietly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight, Boaz was startled, and he turned over, and there at his feet was a woman. And he said, "Who are you?" And she said, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over me, for you are next of kin redeemer. And Boaz said to her, May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter, for this last act of loyalty is better than the first. You have not gone after the young men, either rich or poor. And now do not be afraid, for I will do all that you ask. For the entire assembly of my people know you are a worthy woman. But now, even though I am a near kinsman, there is another kinsman more closely related than I. Stay the night, and if he will act as kinsman redeemer, good, he may do it. But if he will not act as kinsman redeemer, as the Lord lives, I will act as kinsman redeemer. Lay here until morning. And so she laid at his feet until morning. But she got up before one person could recognize another. For he said, It must not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said to her, Bring me the cloak that you are wearing and hold it out. And so she held it. And he measured in 6 measures of barley. He put it on her back, and then he went into the city.
Ruth came to her mother-in-law, and Naomi said to her,
So, my daughter, who are you?
So Ruth told her all that the man had done for her. He gave me these 6 measures of barley. For he said, Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.
Wait, my daughter, until you learn how this matter turns out. The man will not rest, but will settle the matter today.
No sooner had Boaz gone up to the gate and sat down than the next of kin of whom Boaz had spoken came passing by. Come over, friend, and sit down here. He went over and sat down. Then Boaz gathered 10 men from the elders of the city and said, Sit here. And they sat down. Boaz then said to the next of kin, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling a parcel of land that belonged to our kinsman Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say to you, buy it in the presence of all who are gathered here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. If you will not, tell me of it, for there is no one prior to you to redeem it, and I come after you. The next of kin thought and said, Well, I will redeem it. I will. Then Boaz said to the next of kin, The day that you acquire the field from the hand of Naomi, you are also acquiring Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of the dead man, in order that the dead man's name may remain on his inheritance. At this, the next of kin said, Oh, I cannot redeem it then without damaging my own inheritance. You take my right of redemption for yourself. I cannot redeem it. Now there was a custom in former days in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one would take off a sandal and give it to the other. It was the method of attesting in Israel. So when the next of kin said to Boaz, You acquire it for yourself, he took off a sandal. Then Boaz stood and said in the presence of all gathered there, including the elders, Today you are witnesses that I am acquiring from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon, and that I am also acquiring Ruth, the wife of Mahlon, to be my wife, in order that the dead man's name may not be removed from his inheritance, and he may not be cut off from his kindred and the gate of his native place. You are witnesses." And they all said, "We are witnesses." "And may this woman who is coming into your house, may the Lord make her like Leah and Rachel, who together built up the house of Israel. And may you produce children in Ephrathah, and may you bestow a name in Bethlehem. And that by the children that the Lord will give you through this young woman, may your house be like the house of Perez that Tamar bore to Judah."
So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when they came together, the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. And the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin. And may his name be renowned in Israel. He will be for you a restorer of life and the nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and placed him in her bosom, and she became his nurse. Then the women of the neighborhood named him, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." And they named him Obed. Obed became the father of Jesse, the father of David. These are the descendants of Perez. Perez became the father of Hezron, Hezron of Ram, Ram of Amminadab, Amminadab of Nahshon, Nahshon of Salmon, Salmon of Boaz, Boaz of Obed, Obed of Jesse, and Jesse of David.